I would like to introduce our next speaker, Nat Prakongpan. Nat is the Vice President of Product at Cyberbit. He has 20 plus years of cybersecurity experience across identity, endpoint, network, SIEM, data, OT, and DevSecOps in both products and services. He is currently a part of IBM Storage, CTO Office, driving cyber resiliency across IBM Storage portfolio. In his previous roles, he built security development teams across Americas, Asia, and EMEA for IBM Security and X-Force Consulting. And one fun fact about Nat, he started programming at age 5, and at 13, he was certified in network security by one of Thailand's national labs. Everybody welcome Nat.
Thank you, Brooke. So part of the what Brooke introduced me is, of course, no longer with IBM. Now I'm with Cyberbit, but I've been previously with IBM for the past 18 years, building the whole X-Force incident response team, as well as the first commercial cyber range and cyber range consulting program. So when Cyberbit gave me a call, it was an easy decision to come over and help progress the work that I've done in cyber range industry. So thank you. So we'll talk a little bit about cyber range technologies today. So a little bit of a background on Cyberbit is Cyberbit is a cyber range company, and we focus on the SOC level engineers up to C-suite, meaning SOC, incident response, forensics people. Some of the GRC role today will expand in the future, but then going up to the crisis management. So the next generation of tabletop essentially within the corporation. So focusing on higher level management, C-suites, as well as board level directors. So let's see. So what we'll talk about today is, first of all, the problems, right? So Lance talked about it. I know a few people talk about the problems. And then, how do we, what are the challenges that we're running into when we're trying to solve that problem, of course. And then we'll go to a little bit of the methodology and what the cyber range is. So kind of give you a little bit of a background on the industry, as well as some of the probably not the live demo, but we'll have some recorded demo just because live demo is always a curse for me, so, right. So as you all know from the National Defense Magazine, there's a big cybersecurity skill gaps within the industry. And my question when I see this slide from, for the past 10 years, that why the number doesn't come down. Right, so we have been on this for more than a decade, and then the number is still the same. And what I've seen is that there's a shift in technologies and there's a shift in skill. Obviously, you are yesterday's number one, your top talent in SOC engineers no longer is equipped to deal with the new type of workload. For example, cloud-based security events. How do you manage event when it becomes zero trust, when there's no boundaries, there's no walls between the outside world and the inside world? So people need to be reskilled to be working on the latest technology, right? And on top of that, there's also more regulations that require more cybersecurity personnel. For example, the CMMC and the defense industrial base, meaning that even if you're not in a technology company, you still need to have a cybersecurity awareness, cybersecurity capabilities within your organization. So let's say you produce nuts and bolts that's going on some type of a defense, might be a vehicle or a tire manufacturer. You have to be compliant on cybersecurity to be working with the DoDs. As part of the supply chain, everybody needs to be secure. So there's more demand for cybersecurity, and there's also a shift in technologies that kind of invalidate the old skills, and the people needs to be kept up with the newer technology that's coming in, right? So another number is, of course, 1 in 3 position in cyber is unfilled. And I think the reason is, like I said, it's about the mismatch in skills, or the skills that are coming out of the training technologies or training service that we have been providing to the industry for the past 10 years are not working well, and they're not workforce ready, right? So we're giving them a lot of skills, but when they get on the bench, like L3 Harris was saying, it's like, why are they not capable to work in SOC today? Is there a barrier to coming in? And I think it's the hands-on experience that gets them from, I know the book, I know the methodology, I know how to practice this, versus, hey, show me Splunk and I'll just write you a query and show you all the steps. Those are the people that get the SOC job, versus the people that come out of school and said, well, I know how DNS links to this query and I can find out the threat actors within your organization, but when you're shown the tools, can you do the work? That's a difference between the two, right? So, and also you have a new type of malware that are coming out. So you have increase in malware, you have increase in ransomware, as well as fileless attacks. So you have SolarWinds that are based on the software supply chain that are being embedded into the tools, expose the vulnerability of a trusted software by a lot of organizations. You have Colonial Pipeline attack that, even though the OT side of the house was not affected, the IT side blocks all the delivery of fuel in the pipeline because you cannot account for what's being in the pipeline, right? You have the Move IT file breach that are essentially, again, software attack, supply chain attack that infiltrate across multiple organizations that don't even know that they use those products in the background to transfer data, right? Offloading, backing up, things like that. So you have a lot of these data leaks that are happening. So with all of these new threats also comes with new tools. So this is why cybersecurity professional needs to be kept up to date on the newer technologies. So for example, socket.dev now have the mapping of all dependencies within GitHub. So if you use any open source library, you can map it out to like which library and which plugin, and you're downloading each of those NPM. There's a browser plugin that shows immediately that you shouldn't download that because it comes from an untrusted source or known exploit source of code. So these new tools, of course, bring in new challenges for career in cyber, that you need to keep up with these new threats and new tools that are coming with it, right? So the traditional training in cyber, of course, we can't close the gaps. We have these, demand that you can't go into SOC immediately right after school. So I would say that the traditional training methodology is failing, because of course you do the training, it doesn't get you the job, it doesn't make you capable to work within the field immediately, right? So I know that FISSEA and NIST and a few organizations that are here are trying to solve that gap and working on the new ways to learn, new ways to train, and be able to bring these candidates to be skill ready and job ready candidates, right? So training is like, traditional training, I would say, is like a piano training. I can read music, I can probably play piano, but if you want me to play Mozart today, you're gonna hear some very bad music, right? So it's about practicing the real skills. So you can have all the tools you need, the capabilities that to do those jobs, but to do it well, you need to practice at the end of the day. And this is where CyberRange comes in and become a critical tools within the learning methodology to bridge that gap of what you learn in school, what you learn from a theory, getting those certifications, and then having the real hands-on practice within the real product, right? soft skill is very important. A lot of the time that, and I talked at the university a few weeks ago, is an interesting subject is when you're in school, you're not supposed to collaborate really with your peers. For example, you cannot copy your test from your peer, plagiarism. You cannot copy the report from your peer, that's a plagiarism, right? But the cybersecurity skills need them to collaborate, needs them to copy it, needs them to share information. So the traditional methodologies kind of in conflict, and you have to retool them when they come on a job in cyber that, hey, you need to share, you need to collaborate, you need to work with your peers to get those information out as quickly as possible. So soft skills become very important, and especially during a crisis, when an attack's happening, how you communicate makes a whole different from your siloing, looking at this incident versus, hey, I have something, let's work together on looking at that incident that's going on. So what is a cyber range, right? So cyber range is a simulation network and a way for you to practice. So the word cyber range come out of the military, and I think the traditional ways, just like you have the gun range, the bomb range, is where you go practice your skills using the real tools that you would do in that situation. So you would include all the real products, for example, Splunk, Palo Alto, CrowdStrike. In your training solution, you have an automated attack generation, because not every day you're going to have a really advanced red team sitting around to help train your blue team. So you want some type of an automated attacks that are helping you with that training. You want to make sure that you keep up with the technologies, right? As the workload shift from on-prem to cloud, is your practitioner able to use AWS console as part of the training? Can they use GCP console as part of the training? That becomes very important as they're trying to configure this environment and be able to respond to, let's say, threats that are coming in from Cloudflare that are part of the AWS services, that they might not even see any of those traffic on the on-prem solution, right? So, and one of the things that I like to work on is, and I've been emailing Karen this week about some of this topic, and she just showed me some really nice document that NICE provide about the cyber range itself. If you look at a cyber journey of any organization, you want to be able to, first of all, build your cyber capability. So you do that by you assessing and you bringing on the people that's going to be working on it, right? So that's the first step. So the second step is you want to upskill them. Of course, you have them in, you're working in a SOC, their skill become obsolete within the first 6 months on the job. That's it. What I know coming in is no longer relevant now, so I need to keep my skill up to date. You want to be able to do the SOC plus, is what I call them, which is incident response, SOC level 3, forensic investigator, as well as risk and compliance would need to be trained as well and being upskilled on the latest technology. Organizations, crisis management or crisis practice, what the traditional model is a tabletop exercise, and that we have been running those for multiple years. We revolutionized the industry with the crisis simulation when I built the IBM Cyber Range in 2015. And we have changed the model that everyone operates now in terms of an immersive exercise where everyone on the C-suite is involved. It's not the technical problem, because you know what? When a cyber incident happens, as soon as it hits the news, it no longer becomes a technical problem. It is become a business problem, and how you respond to that is your organization reputation on handling sensitive data going forward. So whether someone would trust you to handle the data and giving you the privilege to run free with that data is really depending on your reputation, credibility within the community, right? So that's how I feel about the crisis simulation, and that's why we do a real immersive with press, with real FBI agents, with putting the CISO on the news, having the journalists come in and do a real interview. We had people that said, I can't handle this, I quit on live TV, right? So it feels really real, and you're really in that situation from a crisis simulation perspective. The next part of the journey is once you have your SOC team around for a while, they're going to get bored. They want to be able to challenge themselves, and this is where red v blue, war game, and I'm sure everyone that runs a SOC today have a CTF running within their organization because they want to do that competition, and we talk about that in a few presentations, that people want to get reward, people want to be competitive about it, and this is how they can reskill and upskill all the time, using a cyber range technology, right? Now, beyond the training, you have organization that wants to do testing of cyber technology. You want to be able to bring in new tools. Let's say I want to switch from Splunk to Sentinel. You want to be able to do that in a simulated environment, having a digital twin of your production system. In the traditional organization, IT organization, you would have a lab system or a pre-production system, and you have a production system. You cannot do that really with cybersecurity because you know what? When you deploy that malware, you don't know where it goes. And this is where cyber range come in to help you contain these tests within a certain environment and be able to orchestrate your test in terms of resetting it to like time 0 and then rerun the test to make sure that it's still the same, right? And the last one here is that you have organizations that are usually big national labs or DODs that want to bring in a system, let's say a drone system that the military is using, and be able to test security on that and make sure that they can hack or not able to hack in that sense by running red team on that tools, and you want to be able to use real attacks on it, so you want to be able to contain those attacks within the cyber range, and you want to again be able to reset the test to confirm that the 5 steps that you did can actually get you into those systems and not a fluke, right? So that defined in the use case that ECS organization, and this is a public documentation. You can search for hype in cyber range on the web, and you'll see the ECS organization, which is a European cybersecurity organization. But NICE also have the document that was released last year as well that kind of relate to this, but this is the framework that I use for this slide. So it goes from competency building, you testing them out, you evaluate the skills that you have, you build your competency, and then you can use it for the rest of the tools. What's interesting about this is the circle, the triangle line that I show, is that on the left-hand side, of course, the cost is very low. Once you get to the right-hand side, you need like real simulation, real replication of your production system, the cost become very high, right? Also, if you think of it on a different ways, everything from cybersecurity competition and to the left, those are normally lands in the training budget, versus everything from that to the right, so the 2 boxes on the right, those are usually lands in the security organization budget and become security tools. So you have a different allocation from budget perspective most of the time, right? And this is just a little bit of an overlay of who have the best use case, and I know the color is not well here, but you have a higher education, so universities, technical college that are focusing on the upskilling, team-based exercise, and you have SMB that wants everything, up to the actual security testing and security research. And you have government organizations that span the whole breadth of the capabilities. You have cadets training, you have recruiting program that are using the left-hand side. You have an advanced research that are going on to the right-hand side of the cyber range capability, right? So that's a little bit about cyber range. Hope that doesn't bore you too much. So how do we empower the workforce? That's also very important, right? So of course, we want to do on-demand training. We want to do hands-on training. We want to map it to the career framework that NICE produce. And we want to make sure it's incentive. This is the ways to engage your audience, right? So why do you need on-demand training? The study found that on-demand training gets 60% retention of knowledge versus just reading books or listening to podcasts or YouTube's website, right? So that's from McKinsey, and of course, what I told you before about the pianist, that you want to practice what you know. So you want the hands-on training, on-demand training. You can be in a train, you can study some, set of information and then go from there, right? So 97% of people that InfoSec magazine survey, found that they want hands-on training. They don't want to just read books, or they don't want to just look at, storyline or play, right? We all take cybersecurity awareness training. And the best one of those is when you actually get the phishing email and be able to click on, yes, this is reporting phishing, or nope, that's not phishing, versus reading 30-minute presentation of why you shouldn't be clicking on phishing emails. So hands-on is always better and get the most retention on that, right? So another interesting subject that I found is, in West Point, part of the core curriculum, and I'm not from the military side, so this could be, unrelated to me, but I feel it's very important that boxing is part of the core curriculum. And anyone here know why? Yep. Because you wouldn't know how to defend, or you would be hesitant to defend until you get that first punch, right? So putting people under pressure, whether that's a time pressure or in the military case, it's a physical pain pressure, which I don't recommend anyone here doing, but putting them under pressure, making them defend for themselves. And that's a good situation for you to practice, not in real life incident, in cyber incident in your organization, but when you do it on the cyber range as a cyber practice, right? So you put them through a bunch of these, they're gonna starting to know how to react to when real incident happen, because guess what? On the hands-on exercise within the cyber range, they are on time constraint, they need to be able to solve those problems, and they have the same situation in the real world, right? So just some data here from IBM is that practice make perfect. So organizations that have practice crisis simulation, live fire, cyber range exercise save on average $1.5 million per cyber incident. And that's with a time loss, business loss, across all the aspect of the business here, right? You want to build that muscle memory, just like firefighting. You want to build that muscle memory so when real incident happen, you know how to react, right? So again, going back to the difference between learning in a different set of ranges. One of them is the capability to do real live fire exercise immersive. So you put the storyline on top of that. This is a real company, you're defending an attack. This is the attack that's coming in. What we're seeing from the outside, you could be saying that, hey, FBI reported or CNN reported that this company has been breached. What you're gonna do is you're now gonna start that investigation. So putting them in a real perspective and not just a book about, this is how you do threat hunting. And this is the 5 steps you go through, PCAPs, you go through event logs, and this is your answer. So putting them in the real life events, like this is how it's gonna happen. You're gonna hear somebody saying something about it. Might be customer calling in to the tech support line, said, hey, my workstation's doing something weird. That's when you start that whole investigation and run down the exercise. So soft skill become very important. How do you hand off the data from tech support, or how do you get enough data from tech support versus just my desktop looks weird, to a real actionable IOCs that you work on your system on the back end, right? So this is where a lot of the curse of knowledge become very important. It's how you communicate these requirements to your parties. Right? You have executive coming down to you say, well, I need to go talk to the regulator in 2 hours. What do we have? It was like, well, don't you know we got hacked, and they got in by our website, and they lateral move through this database, and they got these tables from us. It's like, well, that doesn't help me with the answer I need. So it's like, is our PII affected, right? So having the mentality of what would the other person need is very important. And this is how we train our clients today, is looking at those perspectives when you do this exercise. Right? Now, the best thing of all that, and the main reason why I'm here is that NICE and NIST have produced a very good job role description through the NICE Career Framework that you can map. So our platform is across multiple agencies, as well as educational institute and service provider. You can start talking on the same language of, hey, I've trained at the university and I have these sets of skills that map to this job role. I should be able to then map directly to a company that have that job definition. Now, if they talk a different language, that SOC level 1 can be multiple things. Is that someone just looking through the ticket, or is that someone that have a little bit more knowledge on how the network works and be able to do that first screening of the incident, or what the SOC level 1s look like? So NIST put that in perspective that everyone can align on. And what we can do with that framework is that we can first of all do the assessment. So first of all, you start with the assessment and see what skills that you have, what roles fit best in that perspective. We then map it out, and you can do it the same way. You can put out a big Excel and start mapping them out with your job that you have today. It's like, does that match to a NICE framework, and be able to look at the right recruitment from that perspective, right? And then when you do the upskilling, you can do career pathing. So you can do a difference between SOC level 1 and SOC level 2, or the SOC team might want to move away and do incident response. You can then see the skill gaps and build that career path for that person specifically to learn and upskill to become the next incident responder, versus just going from SOC level 1 to level 2 to level 3, which is a little bit easier, right? So having the NICE framework is really good, and we need to we should align onto that. Then it becomes an easy conversation, as well as you might be working with your MSSP today. You might not have your SOC team, but your security outsourcing, you can ask them, like, do you have this person on your team? And they can say yes or no very quickly, versus trying to write 5-page description of what this person will be working on, and then they read that 5-page description and trying to match with what they have in another 5-page description of what this person can do. So having a NICE framework helps with that conversation as well. Right. Now, of course, people like to get incentive. Like we've talked about these past 2 days, like certification programs, very important. Chris from Pearson VUE is here. There are a lot of the certification programs as well. CPE credits, people that have ISC Square, want CPE credits so that they can keep those certification valid for longer as their continued education. They want to be able to share their badge with their peers, what they've learned on LinkedIn, help their career development. And most of the time, they want that competition. They want to compete with their peer on, hey, I've done better on this, you've done better on that. So that become very interesting from a training perspective, right? Now, I'd like to talk a little bit from the crisis simulation. I know I mentioned how we do the fully immersive, going through the press and things like that. We've recently done one with the UK government across multiple agencies. It went really awesome, and people have a lot of action item coming out of that in terms of what they're missing, and they need to go close that gap. So I think this is a lot a lot of these practice can be used within your agencies to figuring out what gaps do they have and what tools or what help that you can provide to them to be able to successfully respond to crisis situation, right? So we have people that have taken this crisis simulation and use it outside of cyber, building out their crisis playbook and things like that from those events. So now going back a little bit on the how you learn itself, right? So you want to be able to cover the breadth of the learning aspect. So imagine you're in college. What you do is you go learn those theories within the classroom. Let's say the chemistry, you know how the molecules are bond and things like that. And then you go to the labs, you have some homework that you do individually. You then go to a lab and work on real chemicals, real equipment to learn those skills. So same thing with the cyber exercise. You do have those boring PowerPoint presentation you need to go through to learn those concepts, and then you use that as to practice within a lab by yourself, and then you expand on that with the team-based exercise on like, okay, now I know how to do these skills. Let's work together on solving real incident. So that's the model that I've been advising a lot of colleges as well as organization on how this works out, right? So having the bite-size on-demand training to a team-based exercise, scheduled team-based exercise, and the whole breadth of it is very important. And having just one silo of each would not get you the same effectiveness as having the whole program. So the program becomes very important. Right? So this is just an example of how we can map skills and courses into the NICE framework. So in this case, this is me. I simulated myself as a system test and evaluation. So it maps into the knowledge, the skills that I need to be able to accomplish those tasks. And then it maps to the classes or the units that will be able to support those skills that you need. And again, this could be part of units that are part of certifications and things like that. So if you have those certs, you would mark this green. Obviously, I'm not technical anymore. I'm in management, so all my skills are red. So that's why. And talking a little bit about Forrester Wave, they did the survey last year of all the cyber ranges. And again, I want to highlight that this is for skill development and training platform. So it doesn't apply to the other use cases that I mentioned earlier from cyber range perspective. There's many things we can do in cyber range. Forrester Wave evaluated a bunch of companies on the skill development and training platform. So we're on the top there, along with immersive labs. And if you look at the capabilities that you need from a cyber range perspective, sometimes and most of the time you need more than one vendor to be able to solve all of your cyber range problems today. There is no one in the industry that covers the breadth of that capability. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So I think with that, I'll close with that instead of doing the live demo for any Q&A. And yep. Questions?
Anybody using cyber ranges? Any additional questions? Susan.
Right, we use cyber ranges. So I thought it was interesting where you're differentiating between the live practice exercises and your skill labs. And so are you finding that you are attaching training to maybe your skill labs and you're focusing more on that? How are you differentiating your activities around what you're using your range for?
Yep. So we do map the whole set of different units that we have within the platform into a class. So just like you would teach a class in college today, you want to be able to map from theory to practice to live fire exercise. So we map those into, let's say, security fundamental or threat hunting So that all maps to mostly map to NICE framework, but then we also work with colleges to map it to their class that they want to teach. What I found interesting is the program, the accreditation program, doesn't match exactly one-to-one with the NICE framework. So a lot of the universities that are trying to get accredited cannot use the NICE framework directly to build those classes that would get them to this level. So the university built everyone to be medium on every skills versus be highlighted on certain skills. So we use all of them to build and link together to accomplish a role within the NICE framework.
What were the challenges in developing the cyber range in the cloud, creating a virtual cloud within a virtual cloud, right?
Yep.
So you're trying to create an Azure one sitting in an AWS environment, wherever they're coming in from that browser. Was there certain challenge? So obviously you did all this with IBM. So was there certain challenges that you had with trying to develop that virtual cloud within your cloud environment?
So that's an interesting question, and I would split that into two categories. If you look at just talk about cloud and cyber range, right? You have one side is the platform, and the other side is content. The platform is very easy. You can put your virtual machines anywhere. The only challenges we ran into in the old days is that most of the software is only VMware compliance. So you need VMware to be able to run the software or otherwise not support it. That's no longer a real issue today as everyone supports across the cloud. So you can run the same software, let's say Splunk in AWS, run Splunk in Azure and things like that. So that would be the challenge on the platform side, be able to run the platform within those containers and virtual machines that they provide. The content side is the challenging part. Because when you're trying to build the cloud content, you don't want to just be like, well, I have my range in AWS. You want to have them actually going through the AWS console, configuring the CloudTrails accounts, and be able to send the logs to your engine, right? Whatever your processing engine is. The hard part is to be able to have that account available to the students without them being able to mess up everything else that are part of your infrastructure. So there's a lot of security that went into that and make sure they only have the right permission to do what's needed for the class versus an all hands-on, they can do anything with it. So that's the hard part, and the orchestration of those become very challenging is all the APIs that we need to call. And of course, with all these cloud, be a SaaS solution, they do change those API without notifying the client. So all of a sudden, these command no longer works. And you have a class that you've been expecting for 2 weeks. Everyone is ready to go on Monday. You show up and it no longer works because something changed over the weekend. They deploy something. So that become a challenge on the QA side and making sure these class spin up every time we do it. And the argument from the vendor is pretty valid because hey, those APIs to create this environment only get calls once when you boarded the company. Guess what? In Cyber Range, we run it 100 times a day. So you're going to run into issues that you're not expecting, and most of the time, those APIs are not critical for their primary client. So becoming a Cyber Range is that niche that no one's really paying attention to at this point. Yep.
All right, next question. And 1 second, sorry. Anyone joining online, feel free to ask questions in the chat as well.
Hi, I just wondered if you could discuss briefly what are some of the challenges that your end users have had using the Cyber Range, and what did you do to overcome them?
That's a very good question. I think the first question is be able to answer what type of cyber range that they need. So if they can answer that, most of the time they would know which platform to pick and they have no issues. A lot of the issues come from the fact that they just buy a cyber range without really understanding what each of the platform provides and whether that match their business goals. Because what happens nowadays is that people said, oh, I need a cyber range because someone said they have a cyber range and they're doing great. but they don't understand the nuances, and that's why I want to present that slide about the differences between all the ranges and be able to pick the right cyber range for you. Aside from that is the real life product that they have. So if they want to use Splunk, they want to use QRadar or Cisco firewall, they need to go procure that extra licenses, which most of the organizations do not have that budgeted as a training budget. Like I can't go buy 3 more firewalls just to put in a training environment. So this is part of the challenge, and they end up using open source tools, which is of course not the same tool that the team actually using it in production.
Hi. How do you identify or select, prioritize the different attacks that you're going to bring onto the range?
Yep. So as a product manager, that's always the hard question. And we usually look at the learning objective, so looking at the TTPs itself. So we're not always running the latest CVEs. And the reason why is that if you look at all the latest attacks that are happening, they're not running based on the latest CVEs. They're running based on older CVEs, sometimes even 2018 or even 2010. You know, Eternal Blue is very old CVEs that Microsoft have for a long time. And we pick the TTPs that are best represented in today's environment. So the latest APT attacks, the latest ransomware, lateral move that you can see, fileless malware, things like that, is what we pick on and what we train on to do threat hunting, incident forensic, and then having the compliance a little bit over that. It's like what does organization need from a compliance perspective, and how can we put some of that dotted line within the story that, hey, because you have this, you leak PII, you need to notify the SEC within, let's say, 72 hours and things like that. So.
All right, one last question.
One more question, just to follow up. Can you talk about, you use APTs in what you're putting in your cyber range. Can you tell us about how long of a lag is there before a new APT is discovered, and when does that show up in your cyber range?
Yep, so it go back to the prioritization. We can turn around quickly within a couple weeks if that's the highest priority that we need to work on. Because of the cyber range and the ability to contain those attacks, we can use the real malware, we can use the real binary within the range, and you wouldn't hurt anybody, right? Unlike traffic generators that you can see in the market today, most of the time they just run the attacks that looks like the attack, but it doesn't have the meat of it. So a lot of your detection tools would not be able to flag those. So Defender would not flag that as a malware and things like that. So we can use the real malware within the range, and we can turn around within a couple weeks because we have all the boxes, the Lego pieces already. We just need to put it together, right? Like we don't need to start from the beginning on how to orchestrate deploying this malware on the Windows machine. I can, take the old script and just change 2 lines and put a file in S3 buckets and just run. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Let's give it up for Nat.